So I want to narrow in on finances, financial wealth, specifically our beliefs around how money is made, what financial wealth looks like, what it means to actually create wealth for ourselves. Because when we really call into question this concept of purposeful living, finances, resources, monetary resources are a condition of our world that we just cannot ignore and that we shouldn't ignore because at the end of the day, they amplify who you already are. They amplify your ability to contribute and to live life in a way that's meaningful and true to you, right? And so for every single one of us, majority of us learn about, how money is made. We adopt the same relationships, the same beliefs around money as our parents from a very young age, before we're even aware of it. We learn about money to a certain degree from those that have come before us, from those that have raised us, and to some extent within the structure of our educational system as well. And so the story for most people goes, go to school, get educated, find a safe and secure job or career, and earn a living. And, for some time, we think this works. That structure, that security of knowing, where you need to be, how you need to be working, when your next paycheck is coming in, it almost satisfies us to some degree because it provides us comfort. Maybe we're making a decent income, but we decide to get married. Maybe we decide to build a family. And as our family grows, so does our need for more money. So what's our response? Well, we work harder. We invest more time, invest more hours. We take on more debt, maybe a mortgage, pay more taxes, and pray for retirement, all the while teaching our children to essentially do the same thing. And so the cycle continues to perpetuate itself. And it's been pursuing and following the structure for the most part that has led to the number one cause of stress in most people's lives because of the strain on our freedom. Lack of time, lack of energy, lack of money. In other words, unhealthy or unhappy, unhealthy, and unwealthy. And as my uncle mentioned earlier, all of us are in the pursuit for the most part of happiness, health, and wealth. But for the majority of the population, it often evades us. So where did we go wrong in the equation? To what degree were we, misled? To what degree have we learned the wrong rules? And what is our own understanding of financial literacy? Where do our own financial beliefs exist? Because when we can start to ask ourselves these questions, it really presents the opportunity to improve our wealth consciousness, to upgrade our wealth consciousness, and to begin to choose differently for ourselves so that we can build and create a lifestyle that is more suited to our purpose. So what you're looking at here is a very well-known concept called the 4 cash flow quadrants. And it was created by the author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki. And what it's really illustrating is 4 basic ways that we earn an income in this life: as an employee, self-employed, as a business owner, and as an investor. And this concept, albeit structure, is just as powerful and effective today as it was when it was first created, because what it's really doing is outlining the relationship that we hold with money. And as we go into this deeper, I'm hoping that you'll start to recognize that on the left side of this quadrant, there exists a very inherent and true problem. So beginning in the top left corner, we have the employee status. This is a condition that I'm sure most of us on this call are all too familiar with. To some degree, we've had an experience with a job. Maybe you've worked for a wage or a salary pay. Bottom line is we're in a condition in which we are trading time for money. We are dependent on the company that we work for the individual that we work for, and we create an income that is entirely dependent on the time of the number of active hours that we actually put in terms of work. And so this is what I like to call a classic textbook case of earning a living. And this is how 75% of the world's population generates an income for themselves. So we move down now into the bottom left quadrant as the self-employed. And we have 20% of the world's population essentially saying, you know what, I'm not okay with the limitations, the constraints that are placed upon me as an employee, being dependent on my employer. And so I want to break away from that. I want to become self-employed. I don't want to have to ask permission for when I can take time off. Maybe I want to earn more. I want to make more income for myself. This also includes more specialized professionals like chartered accountants, lawyers, doctors. And so you've broken away from the condition of being dependent. You become independent. And in fact, maybe you have others who are dependent on you, like your employees. But the bottom line is you are still trading time for money. You now work for your business, where if you don't show up, your business doesn't operate and you don't make any money. And so maybe you've claimed the title of a business owner, but the reality is your business now owns you. So we have 95% of the world's population trading time for money. Where what's the response when you want to make more money? Trade more time, invest more time, work harder, right? Why? Because that's how we've been taught. That's how we've been taught by those that have come before us, the structures that have existed. Go to school, get educated, find a safe and secure job or career, and earn a living. But time can be either your greatest asset or your greatest liability. And the inherent problem that exists here on the left side of the quadrants is that time is always a liability. If you think about it, you're in the condition of trading time for money, meaning that the amount of income that you can earn is always going to be dependent on the time. There's only one of you. We all have the same 24 hours available in any day. Therefore, there is naturally a limit to how much time you have available, and there would be a limit to how much income you can create and generate for yourself. So we have 95% of the world's population living in a condition in which their income potential is limited, it's capped, and the income they generate for themselves always comes at the expense of their freedom, because it's earned through active time, through active work, right? And there's a really big difference between earning a living, working for a living, and building a life for yourself. So when we move into the right side of the quadrants, as a business owner now with 500 or more employees, you now have a system that's working for you. This is really where we start to tap into wealth creation, because you as a business owner have learned that rather than trading time for money, you create an income for yourself by building an asset, building a business that creates value. The more money you want to earn, the more income you want to generate, the more value you add and contribute. And that's what wealth creation looks like, because now you have a system that's working for you, independent of you, and that's leverage. It becomes less about being the smartest, the most capable, the hardest working person in the room. And instead, you've learned to hire people that are smarter and more capable than you. You've learned to develop longstanding relationships with people that you trust and respect, to collaborate with those individuals, where you go from being independent to instead interdependent within a network and a system that is self-perpetuating. My uncle said this about a week ago, and it's stayed in my mind ever since. But it's the idea that most people look for work. Wealthy people will create a network. And it's really the difference between earning 100% from the efforts of one person and instead earning 1% from the efforts of 100 people. The individuals on the right side or on the right quadrants, they understand, these are individuals that are creating wealth for themselves in a condition of wealth creation, understand the value of capturing a small percentage of something very big, something large that creates value independent of their time. And it's a similar condition, as an investor, where you've now transitioned into a situation in which you're no longer working for your money, but your money is now working for you. You've connected with the things that you value and you decided to invest in those things, and your money continues to grow and amplify as a result of that. And so the bottom line is we have 5% of the world's population owning 95% of the world wealth, because the wealthy understand that rather than trading time for money, you create wealth by building an asset that creates value independent of your time. And I want to go back to the idea that time can either be your greatest asset or your greatest liability, because the reality for most of these people here on the right is that they have more than one source of income, multiple streams of passive and residual income. And if you're an individual that's trading time for money, then it can be very difficult to conceptualize, to integrate the idea or the capacity that you have to generate more than one source of income, because you're using all the time that you've got to work for the money that you're making through this one source, through this one stream. But the reality is we all have the same 24 hours in the day. How we leverage that time is what stands the difference. Individuals on the right, those that are in a state of wealth creation, will create the time, find the time, use whatever time they've got, and commit that to building. They're builders. They'll build an asset, and once that asset is up and running, generating an income, they'll go and duplicate that process. Probably for the most part, using the resources and the capitals that they generated from this original asset to help further grow and expand all their other income streams, all their other assets. But they'll continue to duplicate that process because there's no limit to how many assets you can create as a business builder. There is, however, a limit to how much time you can trade as an employee, as a worker bee. And so the 5%, the wealthy 5%, will find the time to build assets. And I think this really is derived from one pivotal difference when it comes to this idea of how we leverage our time that stems from our beliefs. Going back to what my uncle mentioned, how our beliefs influence our behaviors, the stories that we tell ourselves, because what we're really talking about here is a difference between poverty and abundance mindset, how the two different individuals on the left and the right operate and think when they're presented with opportunity, when they're presented with challenge. And so, for instance, you can have two of these individuals, one from the left, one from the right, presented with the exact same opportunity, the exact same tools, the exact same resources. And usually when opportunity comes knocking, there's some type of attached challenge, some investment of some kind, whether it's an investment of time, an investment of money, other resources, maybe a learning of a new skill. There's usually a challenge attached to it because what you're being asked is to expand out of your current reality, which is going to require you to do things you've never done before and to get uncomfortable. So opportunity comes knocking. An individual on the left who's trading time for money will see that opportunity. Maybe it's asking them to use some time to build it out. They'll see that opportunity and they'll say to themselves, I don't have the time. And right then and there, that's the end of their road. They've hit a wall and there's nothing further to explore beyond that. And their current reality continues to persist. They don't have the time. Whereas you present the same opportunity to the individual on the left, an individual who's building assets, who wants to build assets. And maybe they're living in the current reality that they don't actually have the time right now. Maybe they're working 2 jobs, maybe they're a full-time mom, but you present them with this opportunity. You tell them that there needs to be an investment in time to build this opportunity out. And rather than saying to themselves, I don't have the time, they'll ask themselves the question, how can I find the time? How can I create the time? And right then and there, the reality shifts. They've activated their mind to become a problem solver, to become more resourceful, to find the time to make this work. And they become a part of the solution rather than the problem. And the reason why they'll find the time is because the individuals on the right are driven by one singular thing more than anything else in this life. It's not the opportunity itself. It's not necessarily the resources that opportunity will provide. It's the freedom that the opportunity can afford them. How those resources will feed into the life that they want to live, a life of freedom, total freedom. Wealth creation is not at all about money accumulated. It's not about having all the money in the world. It's about finding a way to generate an income for yourself that can afford you a life inspired entirely by how you want to live. For the people on the right, it's all about freedom, ownership over their time, over their money, over their energy. Money is the tool, it's the resource, it's the vehicle. Freedom is the goal for them. And this goes far beyond the difference between being an employer versus an employee. What we're really talking about here is the difference between having control over your own destiny or giving up that control to others. And for somebody who's driven by freedom, they will find a way to create the resources, the money, the time to take advantage of the opportunity that's being presented to them because they're driven by a greater goal. The individuals on the left, for the most part, are driven by security. And so that's why when they're presented with an opportunity like that, the natural response would be to contract. I don't have the time. This is too scary because it's going to take me out of my current reality. It's going to cause some discomfort. And I like my security. It's what I've known my entire life. right? But you can't have security and freedom at the same time. And chase security, you'll become the most insecure person around. So for the people on the right, it is all about freedom. And that only exists on this side of the quadrants. So if freedom, time freedom, financial freedom, ownership over how you live your life, over how you invest your time, your money, your energy is something that is important to you, then learning how to create multiple streams of income, learning how to build assets, learning from the individuals who have done that, and surrounding yourself with a community of individuals who are doing that needs to become a priority in your life. Because when it does, you'll find yourself in a position where how you work, who you work for, where you work, the work that you perform, these all become choices and decisions that are entirely yours, not based on the pay, not based on the benefits, not based on the security, but simply based on whether or not you love that, right? You get to find yourself in a position where you can ask the question, is the work that I'm doing, is the career that I'm working towards, the profession that I'm in, something that truly lights me up, something that I love? Is it a way that I want to contribute in this world? Is it the impact that I want to make? Or am I just a hamster on a wheel just trying to, get by? And if not, can I choose differently? Am I in a position in my life to choose differently? Do I have that ability? Do I have that freedom of choice? Because that's what freedom really is all about. And to me, that's a position that every single person should be in their life. It's not at all a privilege that should only be afforded to 5% of the population. It's your God-given right. And so I want to leave you guys with this final thought, because right now, we are currently going through such a massive and pivotal shift in our collective history. You can look around you and see the world that we know changing before our eyes. And that shift in and of itself is calling forward leadership. And it's not the kind of leadership that's, taken on by one singular individual, but rather it's calling forward each and every one of us to step into our own power as a leader, to step into that role. And humanity needs you to have resources. Humanity needs me to have resources, each and every one of us to have resources. There needs to be a transfer of wealth from the hands of leaders who are leading and operating in, the old paradigm into the hands of new conscious leaders who genuinely want to have a positive impact on the world. Because you spend your money where your values are. Money is an amplifier at the end of the day. And we need more money being circulated, more resources being circulated. So to have a vehicle that can take more people from the left to the right, that can seamlessly bridge the gap from the left to the right, to put people in a position of wealth creation, in a position of empowerment and self-actualization, it's what we need now more than ever. It's priceless.